Hi everyone, Elle here again at the Lucy Rose Clinic. I'm a health educator here, and today I want to talk about one of the biggest myths in health and weight loss, because I know so many women listening right now feel super frustrated. You know, you've tried the diets, you've counted calories, you've cut the carbs, you've even joined the gym. You know, you've followed all the advice you've been given, and yet the scales aren't moving. So, or maybe they are moving a little bit for a while and then it stops. Or perhaps the weight keeps creeping up despite your best efforts. So I guess if that sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. And more importantly, it's probably not because you're doing something wrong, but you know, it's just because of an underlying issue. So have you ever been on a diet that worked for a while, but then the weight came back? If you have, please type yes in the comments. I'd love to know, because what I'm about to share may completely change the way you think about weight loss. So the biggest weight loss myth we've been taught is that weight loss is simply about calories in versus calories out. Now, calories do matter, but here's the problem. Your body isn't a calculator. It's not a machine. It's a living, breathing hormonal system. And hormones determine what happens to those calories. So I guess think of it this way. Two women can eat exactly the same meal. Same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner. You know, one gains weight and one loses weight. Now, why does this happen? Because hormones influence how the body uses energy. Hormones determine, you know, whether you burn fat, whether you store fat, whether you feel hungry, satisfied, whether you have cravings or energy. And I guess this is where so many women get stuck. So they're focusing on calories, but they're ignoring the hormones controlling those calories. And why does weight loss get harder with age? I guess one of the things we hear here at the Lucy Rose Clinic all the time is, I've always been able to lose weight before, or what worked 10 years ago just doesn't work anymore. Now, if you can relate to that, please drop a yes in the comments. If you've noticed your body changing over the years, because here's the reality, your hormones do change. Especially for women in their late 30s, 40s, 50s. And as hormones change, you know, your metabolism changes, sleep changes, you know, stress levels change, recovery changes. The way your body stores fat changes. And suddenly the old strategies just don't work anymore. Not because you're failing, but because your body's different. And that's actually a really important distinction. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, it says it all in our Hormonal Weight ebook. There are, 7 major hormones that involve weight regulation. These would be, say, thyroid hormones, insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, melatonin, or tongue twisters. Estrogen, progesterone, and each of these hormones influences your ability to lose weight. So let's look at a couple of examples. So for example, if your cortisol is elevated because you're stressed, your body is more likely to store fat around the middle. If your insulin isn't working effectively, your body becomes better at storing fat and worse at burning it. So if your thyroid slows down, your metabolism slows down too. And if your sleeping is not going well, or you're not sleeping properly, the hormones that regulate hunger can become disrupted. So suddenly you're hungrier, you crave more sugar, and you have less energy. And then you start blaming yourself. But in reality, your hormones may be driving the problem. So why willpower isn't the issue. And this is something I want women to hear. You know, weight struggles are not always about willpower. In fact, many of the women we work with are actually incredibly disciplined. So they've tried everything, they're motivated, committed, they're working so hard, but they're fighting against hormone imbalances and they don't even know they have them. Like, imagine trying to drive a car with the handbrake on. You know, you can push harder, you can press the accelerator more, but ultimately you're still making life difficult for yourself. And I guess that's what hormonal imbalances can feel like. So you're trying harder than ever. You know, your body is working against you. Okay, have you ever felt like you're doing all the things right, but you're not getting results? If that's you, type me in the comments, because again, you're not alone. And the good news now, this is the encouraging part, when we identify what's actually driving the weight gain, everything starts to make sense. So instead of guessing, you know, instead of random diets, or instead of blaming yourself, you start really understanding your body. And, you know, when you understand your body, you can work with it rather than against it. And that's the key. So it's, you know, it's where the magic happens, because sustainable weight, it isn't about punishment. You know, it's about really understanding. It's about understanding what's getting in the way and then supporting your body appropriately. So let's do a recap. If you remember one thing from today's live, let it be this. Weight loss is not about calories alone. Your hormones play a massive part in this. They influence metabolism, hunger, cravings, energy, fat storage, sleep, stress response, you know, and when those hormones are out of balance, weight loss becomes so much harder than it needs to be. So if today's information resonated with you and you'd like to learn more, please download our free Hormonal Weight ebook. Inside, you'll discover the 7 key hormones that influence weight gain, metabolism, cravings, and energy, and you'll gain a much deeper understanding of what's happening inside your body. And if you're already working with us here at the Lucy Rose Clinic, reach out to one of our practitioners for further information and support. And if you're new here to the Lucy Rose Clinic and would like personalised advice, book a complimentary 15-minute consultation with one of our practitioners today. We'd honestly love to hear from you and understand, you know, what's really driving your symptoms, and then what's the next step. So if you found this live helpful, let me know in the comments, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I